Welcome to a story where silence speaks louder than screams and power hides behind patience. What begins as a picture-perfect family moment quickly fractures into betrayal so public it steals the air from the room. This is not a tale of weakness or impulsive rage. It's about quiet strength, long memory, and truths that were never equally shared. You'll witness a marriage built on imbalance, where financial secrets and emotional distance were masked as love. You'll see how devotion to a child can delay justice, but also sharpen it. And when the moment finally arrives, there are no tears, no shouting, no scenes, only preparation, evidence, and one envelope that changes everything. If you believe revenge doesn't have to be loud to be devastating, if you understand that silence can be strategy and patience can be power, then this story is for you. Stay with us. Every detail matters. The moment was chosen with cruelty disguised as confidence. Surrounded by cheering families, flashing cameras, and the kind of pride that only years of sacrifice can earn, a hand tightened at the exact second applause peaked. That was when the truth was delivered, quiet enough to stay private, loud enough to destroy. The words landed like a calculated strike, leaving someone else, no going back. He believed shock would do the work for him. He believed silence meant surrender. What he didn't understand was that silence had been practiced for years. Every unexplained late night, every business trip that stretched too long, every conversation that ended abruptly when footsteps approached had taught restraint. There had been moments when questions burned the tongue, moments when truth begged to be dragged into the light. But patience was mistaken for weakness, composure for ignorance. He never noticed the way details were remembered, how dates lined up too neatly, how names repeated themselves in places they didn't belong. Choosing that day wasn't an accident. It was meant to humiliate, to trap decency into compliance. He counted on the setting to keep things contained, to force dignity into swallowing betrayal whole. He assumed there would be tears, pleading, maybe disbelief. Something messy, something he could dismiss. Instead, there was calm. Inside, something cracked open, not loudly, not visibly, but with absolute clarity. This wasn't just an ending, it was exposure. Years of emotional distance suddenly made sense. The guarded phone, the sudden interest in protecting finances, the way affection had turned transactional. He hadn't just been leaving, he had already left, piece by piece, while maintaining the illusion of loyalty. The crowd kept celebrating. A daughter smiled for photos, unaware that adulthood was being introduced in the harshest way possible, through the collapse of certainty. And still, silence held, not because there was nothing to say, but because saying nothing kept control exactly where it belonged. He stood there confident, relieved even, believing the worst was over, believing the truth had freed him. What he never realized was that the truth had already been documented, preserved, and waiting patiently for the right moment to speak back. Some people mistake quiet for defeat until they realized it was strategy all along. The marriage had always felt slightly off, though it took years to understand why. Promises were made easily, but explanations were rare. Questions about money were met with jokes, then irritation, then silence. Accounts were handled, investments were complicated, and trust was expected without proof. It seemed easier to let it go, easier to believe that partnership meant not needing to check every detail. That belief became the first mistake. Emotional distance arrived quietly. Conversations shortened. Eye contact faded. Affection became conditional, offered only when useful. There was always work, always stress, always some invisible pressure that justified coming home late or leaving early. Anniversaries were forgotten, then dismissed as trivial. Concerns were reframed as overthinking. Each time doubt surfaced, it was pushed back down, labeled unnecessary, dramatic, inconvenient. The signs were there: missed calls answered with irritation, receipts that didn't match stories, a phone turned face down like a habit rather than a choice. Even then, hope insisted on filling in the gaps. Hope has a way of excusing what shouldn't be ignored. It convinces loyalty to survive on crumbs, while betrayal eats well in private. Financial control tightened slowly, almost invisibly. Joint plans became solo decisions. Shared savings became restricted access. Large sums moved without discussion, explained away with confidence meant to intimidate rather than reassure. The imbalance grew so gradually it felt normal, like gravity, always there, unnoticed until something falls too hard. Then came the moment when all those years collided. The announcement wasn't just an exit, it was confirmation. Someone else, a new life already imagined. No hesitation, no guilt, just relief at finally speaking aloud what had been practiced in secret. It became clear then that honesty had never been mutual. Transparency had only been expected from one side. While devotion was given freely, truth had been rationed carefully. What hurt most wasn't the affair, it was the realization that the marriage had never been built on shared reality. One person had been carrying faith, patience, and responsibility, while the other carried options. The past rewrote itself instantly. Every argument avoided, every instinct ignored, every sacrifice made sense in the cruelest way. That single moment didn't break the marriage, it revealed that it had already been broken for a very long time. And once the truth finally stood naked, it was impossible to ever carry it alone again. Patience was never born from weakness. It came from watching a child grow, from choosing stability over confrontation, from understanding that timing matters more than truth shouted too early. Every swallowed argument, every ignored suspicion, every night spent pretending not to notice the distance was a deliberate choice made in service of one goal: protection. Love has a way of stretching endurance far beyond what seems reasonable, especially when a child's sense of safety hangs in the balance. There were moments when anger begged to be unleashed, messages discovered too quickly closed, financial records that didn't align quietly copied instead of questioned, lies told with ease were stored away, not confronted. It wasn't denial, it was documentation. Childhood milestones were allowed to remain untouched by adult chaos. Birthdays stayed joyful, school events stayed whole. The family image stayed intact because someone had to hold it together while someone else quietly dismantled it. The betrayal deepened over time. A secret account here, a sudden change in beneficiaries there, conversations with another woman disguised as networking. Trust was abused with the confidence of someone who believed consequences could always be postponed. He mistook endurance for blindness, calm for ignorance, and love for a child as permission to behave without restraint. What he never understood was that memory sharpens when silence is forced. Dates were remembered, patterns tracked, evidence preserved. Every lie had a timestamp, every betrayal left a trail. The longer the waiting lasted, the more precise the response became. Revenge doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrives organized. When the moment finally came, it wasn't fueled by rage. Rage burns too fast. It was fueled by clarity. The child had reached a place of strength and independence. The shield was no longer needed. That was when patience ended, not dramatically, but decisively. Everything collected over the years had a purpose now: legal leverage, financial truth, proof that devotion had been exploited while deception thrived. What he expected was an emotional collapse, a desperate attempt to salvage something already destroyed. What he encountered instead was resolve. No accusations shouted, no tears used as currency, just action, measured, informed, and impossible to undo. The same care once poured into protecting a family was redirected into protecting a future. Love had delayed the reckoning, but it also perfected it. And when justice finally arrived, it did so with the quiet certainty of someone who never forgot a single. There was no urge to scream, no desire to beg for explanations that would only arrive half-formed and dishonest. Rage had already burned itself out long before the truth surfaced publicly. What remained was something far more dangerous: focus. While betrayal unfolded in secret, preparation unfolded quietly alongside it. Every late-night work call, every unexplained charge, every sudden shift in behavior became another thread pulled loose from the illusion of loyalty. The lies were bold in their consistency: affairs disguised as ambition, missing money disguised as investment, emotional absence disguised as stress. A husband so convinced of control stopped hiding entirely, certain that silence meant ignorance. Phones were left unattended, passwords reused, documents stored carelessly as though no one would ever think to look. That confidence became the greatest mistake of all. There were receipts, literal and otherwise, bank statements revealing accounts never disclosed, transfers timed perfectly with hotel bookings and weekend conferences, emails written with intimacy never offered at home. A carefully maintained double life built on the assumption that discovery would never come, or if it did, it would arrive too late to matter. The day chosen to announce departure was meant to be theatrical, decisive, humiliating. A public declaration designed to flip the narrative, to cast betrayal as bravery. What was expected in return was collapse, tears, disbelief, maybe a scene worthy of sympathy. What happened instead was silence, deliberate and impenetrable. The envelope had weight, not from paper, but from truth. Inside were copies of everything he believed invisible: proof of financial misconduct, evidence of infidelity conducted on company time and devices, legal documents signed years earlier and conveniently forgotten. Each page stripped away another layer of the life he thought untouchable. The future he planned unraveled right there, without a single raised voice. Hands shook as pages turned, color drained from a face so used to control. For the first time, power shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. There was no need to explain anything. The evidence spoke fluently on its own. That was the moment realization hit. Revenge doesn't require chaos. It requires patience, accuracy, and timing. Everything taken from a family was returned in kind. Security replaced with uncertainty, confidence replaced with fear, control replaced with consequence. And as the envelope closed, so did the chapter where silence was mistaken for submission. Some betrayals don't end with closure, they end with consequence. If this story resonated with you, if you believe quiet strength can be more powerful than public outrage, show your support by liking this video. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that uncover hidden truths, emotional reckonings, and justice delivered with precision. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and reaching others who understand that revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it simply waits.